On the show today, Ashanti Branch. He is the founder and director of the Ever Forward project. He is known for doing work with men, doing work. We'll talk about masks, I'm sure, talking about feelings, working with people of color, particularly boys, youth, from Oakland, California, I believe, sir.
That's right.
Okay, listen, let's get to masks, because you were talking about masks before it was cool. You're ahead of the game here. So like you were talking about masks pre-COVID. So let's sort of say like what you mean by the mask, and then what does that mean now? Because the context has shifted from 2 years ago.
So our main work was called Taking Off the Mask. That was our main workshop. We were featured in a documentary called The Mask You Live In, which was about American masculinity. And even though it's about American masculinity, we see that type of context of the documentary, people around the world recognize it. So The Mask You Live In was this idea that they were going to come film me doing some work with some of the boys I work with, young men. And I said, well, you should go to our club that's actually the best club, because they do the more deep work. And they were like, well, we want to see where you do the work. I said, well, the young men I'm working with, they don't open up. They don't talk. They don't share what they're going through. And they were like, well, we want to see the resistance. I'm like, all right, I'm glad you want to see resistance. So I was working with some young men at this high school, my old high school, not opening up. And what happened in that moment, when I was thinking about what they were going to come and see, they were going to see young men pretending that everything was fine. When we do a check-in on a scale from 1 to 10, all those young men are like 10s, maybe 1, 9, 10, 10, 10.
I'm good. I'm good.
Everything's fine. Yeah. I'm fine. And I knew it wasn't, because I was one of them. And not only I was one of them, I was a dean. So all the referrals and all the suspensions go through my office for the most part. So I knew that they weren't fine, but they in front of each other, I can't tell their business. My job in a circle is to hold space. So anyway, I said, well, what if I can make them talk about it without talking about it? And the idea of the mask was like, okay, in the documentary, I pass out this picture of a mask. I'm like, okay, on the front, write qualities that you let people see. On the back, write qualities you don't let people see. And right away, like literally, they started writing them. And what I was like, okay, ball the paper up. And then we just start throwing pieces of paper at each other, because I really my goal in my mind was shake the energy up, but also mix the papers up. And then I told
what do they say? Like, what do you say? Like, because there is this thing around the world, and in Britain we have this, how are you? I'm okay. How are you? I'm okay. It's just a sort of social ritual, and for certain groups, maybe guys, particularly certain ethnic groups as well. I think it's like you can't say anything else. Right. And I saw you do a check-in at the Embodiment Conference. I watched your Embodiment Conference talk. It's like, no, really, how are you? Like, I was just training some of my new staff in this, because we have a company meeting every week, and we do a 30-second check-in, and I ban fine, good, and okay. They're banned. You can pass, but they're banned. And it's like, there's some people in there who are from Hungary, who's a culture that isn't super emotionally expressive in my team. And they're like really struggling, but they're like, I'm tired. I'm like, good, like I try to reinforce that they can say tired, and I'm not going to fire them. You know what I mean? It's like you have to teach people that it's safe to say how they really are, right? Like, what do people say when they start feeling safe enough to kind of come out with it?
Man, I think what they began to recognize, and definitely those young men, I want to tell you this last part, because what they did in those papers, when they opened up a paper that wasn't theirs, they saw that what they were not showing behind their mask, the other young men weren't showing behind their masks. Because everybody on the front was fine, good, and cool, but on the back, it was like fear and sad. I don't show anger because I'm afraid if I show anger, it's going to get me in a lot of trouble. Like all the things, that family problems, addiction from parents, like they began to recognize that, wait, how are we all dealing with the same stuff and we don't talk about it? And one young man said, it's like you got to keep your poker face on. You can't show people what you got.
Right.
And I said, how hard is that? And he's like, well, if we don't do it, people could use it against you. So they already know that if I let people know how I feel, then somebody can betray me and they can tell people. And then those people think I'm not a real man. Then I got to prove to those other people that I am a real man. And then it becomes a battle. In a community like Oakland, it means you're probably going to be fighting, or you're going to be in some kind of physical altercation, because that's what people need for themselves and to prove to others, because it's an outward vision. But once you prove it once, you're never done proving it, right? No matter how much sex you have, no matter how many phone numbers you get, no matter how many cars you drive, how much money you have in the bank, you don't have that thing though, and you don't have that, and so he's always, if you're hunting for the thing that's going to make you prove to everybody you're a man, you're always going to be proving. When do women have to prove they're women? How do women have to prove they're women? I mean, is there a proving that you're a woman? The idea.
Maybe they do. They in other ways, maybe in other ways. Yeah, if a woman's not considered beautiful, that's a problem for her, right, amongst other women. And, I think they have their own pressures, don't they? But it's definitely different.
Yeah.
I feel sad like hearing you talk, because when I was a kid, my dad was drinking and I didn't tell anyone about it. Kind of people knew because it was a small town, and I think, God, I bet there was other kids that had a dad that drunk, but I never met one. In 15 years of being a kid in that little town, I never once met another kid who's like, yeah, my dad's a drinker too. You know what I mean? Because he wasn't talking about it and I weren't talking about it.
That's right.
So how would we find each other? You know what I mean? And
That's
the
right.
last thing I wanted is people to know my dad was a drunk, and then that word would get out and I'd be teased even more than I was already. And my friends were they would like keep it quiet because they were trying to defend me. But I couldn't get any help for that. I couldn't get any support for that because it was like, I didn't say anything. My friends didn't say anything. Yeah. My mum didn't say anything. It's like, so how would I have reached out to someone and said, hey, this is really rough,
Yeah. And how many young people are dealing with so many more things, right? That could be even that and what you dealt with and feeling what you felt. And imagine if it was abusive, right? If you were like having to wear long sleeves to hide other stuff that was going on. And I think that what young people deal with oftentimes, sometimes parents who haven't dealt with their own emotions in healthy ways begin to spill out that unhealthiness on the children. And I think that what we do in our work, we tell young people, look, we don't think you're broken. We think that you may, and definitely the young men in our work, we believe that you may have been told things that were not 100% accurate. That to show feelings makes you less than who you are. But we think that it actually allows you to be more of who you really are, right? Like when you talk about how you're doing, I'm fine. Okay, we have this image in our work, and I'll show it to you, but I'll tell you about it. So on the outside of this image, it says, I'm okay. If you look on the outside, it says, I'm okay. It's like a face. But if you look on the inside, in between I'm okay, there's a word over the mouth.
I'm not okay.
Yeah. And it's hard to see on purpose. We make the not is hard to see because if somebody's saying I'm fine, I'm good, I'm cool, you almost feel like you may be a jerk to be like pushing them and say, are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because it's hard to talk about. Mm-hmm. It's hard to see it. It's hard to see it if they're good with their masks, and it's really hard to talk about it. And what we know about the mask is we're telling people, look, we're definitely not talking about these personal protection masks that everyone is needing to wear in many communities. We're talking about masks of emotional disconnection. Like the mask that you were wearing before, that's not a piece of fabric, but that's your smile when you're not feeling happy. That's your, everything's fine when you're not doing fine. It's your, yeah, everything's great. Everything's great this weekend when you know that it wasn't, because the image that you have to keep up. And sometimes those images, we don't tell people, I don't judge people's masks. I got mine. I tell people, do you have a place that you can go and take it off? You have at least one person that you can go with and they know you fully. And that is really something that we've been really working with young people about. And one of my mentors about a couple of months ago asked me, Ashanti, where are you fully known? Where are you fully known? And I was
where are you fully known? That's a nice question, huh? Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think anywhere I'm fully known. He says, well, I think it'd be really hard to be fully loved unless you are fully known.
Because you get love for something you're not. Yeah.
Or just half of you, right? Or just parts of you. And I was like, oh wow. Oh wow. I feel that, right? And I think that we talk about young people about really finding places, and everyone doesn't deserve to know all your truth, right? Whatever you've been going, everyone doesn't deserve to hear your real story. But I think everyone needs at least one. That's where we invite young people.
Yeah. Those one or two friends, or that therapist, or that coach, or mentor, whoever it is that you can go to. I think the difference between one and none is a huge difference, right? Whether that's a mentor or a youth worker, that's a huge difference.
That's right. Absolutely.
Beautiful. And how does this interact with the sort of the personal protective mask wearing thing? So let me give you an example. I noticed this. I was in this hotel the other day in Mexico, and I was kind of in a bad mood, and I didn't really want to connect with anyone. And I was kind of glad that I got to put on this blue mask as I walked through the hotel, because I didn't really want them to see my emotions. I was a bit lonely. I wasn't having a great day. And I was literally hiding my face. And it was kind of easier than having to put on a fake smile, because a lot of the staff were real friendly, kind of got that kind of Mexican kind of friendliness going on. And like, I just didn't want to deal with that. And it was so good to be able to put on that blue thing in front of my face and then just sort of nod as I walked through if they addressed me. And it was like, wow, this is like a literal mask instead of the virtual one almost, Yeah.
Oh man. And what you just named there is such a big thing. And I've been writing about this a little bit lately because I'm 6'1" and I'm 300 pounds. So I'm a big dude. And I always am more conscious about how much size and space I take up in spaces, whether I'm in an aisle at a grocery store. So I'm always trying to smile at people with this pre-mask, like to make them feel a little comfortable, right? To put them at ease, right? And I realized that like when I'm wearing a mask, I don't have to be thinking about trying to make sure that I'm smiling at everybody so that they don't feel uncomfortable around me, because we're all wearing masks anyway. And I find like, oh wow, I have less thinking to do when I go and do my business in the store because
you don't have to appease people that way.